अभी तक जो लिमिटेशन था हमारे कोड में उसको ओवरकम करते हैं बाय यूजिंग सेशन हैंडलिंग. So the limitation is, the first limitation is whenever I log in, तो मेरे पास क्या रहा है यहाँ पर, that is a login URL. तो मैं यहाँ पर क्या कर सकता हूँ, मैं डायरेक्टली इस लॉगिन को कॉपी पेस्ट करके भी डायरेक्टली रीच कर सकता हूँ उस पेज पे. So if I press enter, it is giving some problem, that is a 405 error. It is giving the 405 error because I am using the servlet which is having a method called doPost. Right, and doPost is only called when your request is going through post method, and whenever you type your URL on your browser, it is always through a get request. It is taking as a get request. So if you type any URL and then you press enter, it is always treated as a get request, right? So it is giving an error that is called 405 error. This error is only comes when your request is through get, and in your servlet you have a method called post, or either it is opposite. So it means if some different method is there in servlet and you are looking for some different method, always 405 error will come, right? So for protecting this thing, I will just copy this thing, and now I will paste this method again, and then I close this method, and instead of this do post, I will make it this as a do get, and here I will call this dot do post, right? So it means it will take a request through do get also. So it means whenever I type a URL and press enter, the request will go through doGet, and doGet indirectly is calling doPost. But the thing is, when this doPost is called, the user ID is your empty and the password is empty because you are not filling the user ID and password, because you are directly jumping to the login page. You are not coming through a login.html. So it means the user ID would be blank and password would be blank. So instead, if I not put a null check, it will generate a null pointer exception because user ID is null and the password is null. So I will specify another if condition, that is if user ID not equals to null and password not equals to null. If user ID is not equals to null and the password is not equals to null, then do this checking, right? And the user ID I is capital, so I will specify user ID, right? So I save this thing, and then it is reloading the changes. So the changes are reloaded. Now I move back again, and here I am logging again, and here it is logged in. Now I copy this thing and paste this thing, and now it is moving to the login page. This is absolutely correct because I logged in a website, and now I am going to the login page, right? And it is not giving any message because everything is inside the if and else, right? So I will put some message here, and I will put print writer response dot get writer, and I put a message called out.println welcome in login page, right? So this message will be get printed. So this message will be get printed, and this will make ensure we are on this page, right? Now I want to also ensure what would be the value of user ID. So this time the user ID value would be null, because if I am going directly jumping to this page. Now the thing is, I am just stopping the server, and then I am running this application again. So it means if I am stopping the server, the user ID is not set, password is not set, and instead of logging it in this website, I am directly jumping to the login page, right? For this, right now I am not doing this login stuff. I am directly jumping to this login page. So I press this enter directly and it is saying welcome in login page null, and this is the problem, because without login I can go to the next page, right? So if I see there is another page called welcome, because whenever the correct user ID and password is found, then it will reach to the welcome servlet. So this is our welcome servlet, and in this welcome servlet it will print something that is welcome, and again the request is through do post. So I will make this thing again do get, because it will simulate the case I can directly jump to the login page. So I need a do get request again. So this is just a provision. When I type do get and do post both, it is a provision. Either request is coming through a do get, it will work. Either it is coming a request through a do post, it will work, right? So it means if anyone is directly jumping to my website, so that request is treated as a get request. And if some value is get added and then submit button is clicked, then the request is treated as a post request. So I am just giving a provision to the user, to the end user. Either it is coming through a get, either it is coming through a post, it will work. But the problem is, some moment of time the user comes directly without entering the user ID and the password. Then how we can prevent this problem, right? So I will specify this thing, this dot do post. Now just wait for the changes is get uploaded, right? So it is uploaded on a server. Now this time, instead of directly going to the login, I am directly going to the welcome user. So I am going to directly to the welcome user page, and it is saying welcome null, right? So it means I am able to go inside directly in a page, right? So for this reason we required a session handling. So session handling says whenever you are connecting your application to the server, so let's treat this like this is a server machine, and in this server the Tomcat is running inside this. So in one machine you have a Tomcat. So now Tomcat is your web server, and your request is coming from various clients. So you have number of clients, because the request is always go through from client to the server through a network, and the network is based on which protocol? HTTP. The problem with the HTTP protocol is HTTP is a connectionless protocol. It means it does not maintain a connection. So whenever you have a request, the request goes to the network and handed over to the server, and then the server will responding back to the client, and then the connection is lost, right? So server would not able to remember the client. To remember the client, server maintain a thing called session ID, right? So it maintain a session ID. So server does not able to remember your client. So on each request, the server responding back to the client, and then server forget the client, right? So it means for each request, the request is treated as a new request every time. So the problem is, if the server is not able to recognize you, so how server knows you already done 2 requests earlier? So how the server is recognize you? For this, server maintain a special ID called session ID on a server side, and the same copy of this session ID is also maintained on a client side. So the same session ID copy is maintained on a client machine, and it is stored in a cookie, right? So it means client maintain a cookie. on a client machine. So for each client, there is a unique session ID, right? And this session ID is a 16-digit number, and that is alphanumeric, right? So this session ID is get generated on a server side, and the copy is stored on a client side. So it has both copies, one on the server side and one on the client side. So if the session ID is maintained on your machine, so whenever you are doing another request to the server, so server now check you, because whenever you send a request, your session ID is appended in your request. So this appended thing is handed over to the server. Now server match your session ID with their stored session ID. If it is match, so server understand you are my old client, right? And whenever you done something, like for example, if you are on Flipkart and you are buying something, so for example, if I am buying mobile, so that mobile thing is get attached with a session ID, right? So my all activities are attached to a session ID. So think like if you go to some restaurant and you give some order to the waiter, so waiter give you a bill according to your table number. So it means every bill is settled with your table number. So if I am sitting on a table number 2 and I am giving an order, so it means the bill is always computed with respect to the table number 2, right? So it means if I have 10 requests for 10 items, so everything is settled against the table number 2. So it means the bill is not my bill is not handed over to table number 5, because all the activities registered under table number 2. So the same thing happens. Any request is handed over to the server by a client is under a session ID. So it means if I bought something, so for example, if I bought mobile, if I bought tablet, everything is under the session ID, right? So it means you treat it like session ID is your table number, and everything whatever you ordered is under the session ID. So it means for your machine you have another session ID, for a different machine. For example, another request is coming from different machine, and let's take it as an example. This machine session ID is 123. So the same ID is maintained here. So whatever the request is done by this 123 client, and the detail of every activity is under 123. So it means if this machine buys LEDs, so the bill is only settled to the 123 number. And if this session ID is treated like this is 55, this machine ID is 55. So if this machine buy mobile and tablet, so it means it is only settled against the 55th number, right? So this is the only mechanism to recognize you, right? So it means any request is going from client to the server, the session ID is attached, and this session ID is reside in your machine, that is inside the cookie, right? So this is how the session is working. So now the thing is, this session ID number is generated by the Tomcat. The comparison of the session ID is done by the Tomcat. So being a developer, our responsibility is just to create a session. So it means we just write some code and that will generate a session, and then when it generates a session on a server side, it will hand it over the copy to the client side, right? And this is the responsibility of the Tomcat actually. So it means it is handed over to the client, and then whenever a new request comes, so the client request is handed over to a Tomcat. Tomcat fetch this session ID and then compare it on a server machine. And if it is match, so the action is taken care by us. So if it is match, what would be the action? If it is not, what would be the action, right? So in our case, when I am typing welcome user, it does not checking the session. If I am doing a session handling, and if this user is not logged in, so the session is not maintained on the server side. So if the session is not maintained on server side, so it means it is a new request. So the new request is always start from login page, right? So now we knows how to what is the value of session in our application. Now we are going to maintain a session. So the problem we understood, that is a user can directly reach to the any page without doing a login activity. So it means the login is now not essential, and actually the login is essential in the real time. So it means we need to maintain a session first for each user. To maintaining a session, there is a ready-made API called HTTP session. So there is a ready-made API that is HTTP session, and we need to maintain that HTTP session in our do post method. So in our do post, whenever we check this user ID and password, so it means when the user ID's password is correct. So in this case, the user ID and password is correct. So if the user ID's password is get correct, then I will do HTTP session equals to request dot get session true. So whenever you write this thing, HTTP session equals to request dot get session true. So it means it is saying I am creating a fresh session. So whenever you write true inside as a parameter, so this thing says creating a new session. And whenever we create a new session, the Tomcat will generate a new session ID like this. So this is the responsibility of the Tomcat to generate a session ID. So the session ID is stored on a server machine, right? So this is not our responsibility to internally generate a session number. So we just need to write this thing, that is session dot request dot get session true, and this statement, the magic behind this statement is to create a new session, and the session is now get created. Now I will store something in a session. So to storing something in a session, so this line, create a new session ID, right? So it means the session ID is get generated, that is a 16-digit alphanumeric session is get generated, and now on behalf of that session ID number, I am storing some values. So it means like I told you, in a restaurant, whenever you are giving any order, so it means the order is bind with your table number. So it means everything is delivered to your table number and bill is settled with your table number. Same, the session ID is get generated here. So once this session ID is get generated, I am storing my values on this session number, right? So for this I will write user, and this is user ID. So internally it look like it will create a box called which is having a session number. So it means some session number is get generated, let's say 111 is get generated, and this triple one is handed over to this session variable. So this session variable has this 111 number, and when I am saying session.set attribute, it is actually saying 1111.set attribute, which is user. So when this user is a key, and this user ID is a value, right? So this is treated as a key, and this is treated as a value. So when the key value pair is stored under this number, right?
Creation of session ID number case basis. What is the logic? Is there some logic like on what the number? What number?
This number is getting this. The logic is actually reside in your Tomcat. So it means this is responsibility of choosing a session number. So it means this session number is get generated by the Tomcat, and Tomcat has a logic to generate a session ID unique every time, because it's a 16-digit number and it is alphanumeric, so it means the combinations are very much, right? And this is take care by your server. So this is the responsibility of server to each time, for each new session, it will generate a new unique session ID. So this session ID is get generated, and we are binding these values under the session ID. Right now, because the session IDs get generated, so it means there is no point to use this forward, because the forward we are using previously is to capture this user ID. Because in previous class we learned there are two mechanisms to redirect to one page to another page. That is, one is the send redirect and another is the forward. The only limitation with a send redirect is it reach to the next page, but it does not take it does not carry a value from previous page. So it means it does not carry a request. But now this time we are not using a request. So the limitation of request variable is request is only from one page to another page, where session is 1 to n number of pages till the session is active. So it means if you are on a Flipkart and once you logged in, so you can move from one page to another page, and your data is carried from one page to another page for your session only, right? So it means whenever you logged in a Flipkart, your name is appeared on top, and whenever you move to electronic section or a closed section, your name is always appear. So because it is in a session, it is not in a request. If it is in a request, it is only from one page to another page, right? So it means there is no point to use this forward. So that's why I commented out this thing, and I use this send redirect again, right? And there is no point to use this user ID, because now this user ID is part of your session, right? So this is a cross check. The session is across multiple pages, but for a particular session, right? So it means
time for the session has to manually set time.
The session time we will going to set, right? So it means this would be the expiry time, when the session would be expired. So now this session is setted, and then I redirect it to a new page. This is new page, and now I am not reading the value from request, because it is not part of request. It is now part of your session. And so I comment this thing, and here I will use string user ID equals to. Now the thing is, first I need to create an object of session, and we know how we can create an object of session by using request dot get session, and this time it is false. So when you are writing false, it means you are saying use existing session, because if I am coming from this login page, so it means I already logged in. So if I already logged in, so it means I created the session. So session is get created. So this time, because I am on a next page, I am not going to create a new session. I am going to use the existing session. So this time this would be treated as a picking the existing session ID. So this will pick the existing session ID, and this existing session ID is handed over to the session variable, right? Now I need to check, is the session ID, the existing session is I have or not. So if I am coming from a login page, so definitely I have a session ID. But if I am not coming from a login page, I am directly jumping to this welcome page, so it means I do not have a session ID. So it means this would be null. So it means the session equals to null means
Direct to the login page.
not having the session. So it means if I do not have a session, so it means I cannot access this page. So it means I will use response dot send redirect, and I am saying redirect to the login page. It means I am suggesting to the user, first you logged in, then you can access this page, right? So it is like if you do not have a user ID password of Gmail and you are going to access directly the inbox page. So Gmail says first logged in, then access the inbox, right? So else, if this is not, so it means it has session, and I will put everything here, and I am saying session dot get attribute, and I'm suggesting this is user which we have set, and now I'm getting this user. Now the thing is, whenever you're getting something, there is a key, and this is a key, and I'm getting a value. Value could be anything. It could be array list, it could be a hash map, it could be a string, it could be an integer. So that's why it is always treated this as an object. So it means it always return object. So it means it will return an upcasted object. So I'm going to downcast it. So here I am downcast this thing. So it is downcasted, and now I have this user ID, and once I have this user ID thing, I can print this user ID.
Session was already created in the previous.
Yeah, in a previous servlet I created this session.
So session was already created. So it is.
So now you are not creating a session. Now
this line again, or is it?
it is mandatory on every page, because if you are directly jumping to this page without
That variable will
accessing,
not be visible.
yes, because this is a local one, right? Is it clear, guys?
So the name of session will be same for every
No, this is just a local variable. This could be any name. It is not
Then how
mandatory,
will we match it?
because whenever you use request.get session, so it means it will it look like treat like this. There are two cases. So first we talk about the first case. So we have a server, and inside this server the Tomcat is running, right? And Tomcat is managing this session stuff. So on a server side, if I am a coder, so I just need to write two kind of lines. One is a session dot request dot get session true, and request dot get session false. So when I'm writing request dot get session true, so this will impact, and this will create a new session ID, and this session ID is handed over to the client, right? So it means this session ID is handed over to the client. Now client want to access some another page. So whenever I am on another servlet, so this first servlet create this number, and I am on a next servlet. So if I am a same user, so if I am a same user, I just close this thing. So I am requesting for this second resource. So this moment of time, it need to check whether this session ID is there or not. So it means if the second request is coming, this 555, which is our session ID number, is coming along with this request. So it means this number 555 is attached in this request, right? So it means this 555 is actually session ID which is traveling from client to the server machine, and then server receive this 555, and then it need to check with this existing session. So it need to check with a existing session. Now I am saying let us check with the existing session. So for checking with the existing session, the code would be request.get session false. So when I am writing request.get session false, so I am saying I have the session ID number which is called 555, and I am saying search this 555 on your session database. So it means Tomcat maintains some session database which is having multiple session numbers, and it is checking with this database. So if it is found, so it means it would not be null. If it is not found, it would be null. So if it is null, so it means you are not eligible user. So it means redirect to the login page first logged in, then come back.
So session is per client.
Session is per client. So it means for each request, so it means if I am a second client and I do not have a session number, and I am looking for this second resource directly without logged in, it means without generating a session number. So it means the blank session number will be traveled to this machine, to the server. So it means the blank session number is not there. So it means this code will again fire. It is looking for some blank session number which I do not have. So it means it is saying first go to the login page, logged in, then access it.
If there is same user logging in from different machines, still different session.
Still different session. Even one single machine, 2 browsers you have, right?
So this is because you are forcing user to come through login.
Yes, come through login only. Is this clear, guys? So when we are using this thing, this session equals to null, so it means this request.getSession false is on all pages. So it means after login page, all page has this code.
So 555 going inside the system.
555 is coming in request, right? So this 55 your session ID, which is a part of your request. And when I am saying request.getSession false, it means I am saying just look for 555 in database. Do not create a new number. So when I am writing this request.getSession true, so it means I am saying create a new session number. So it means if anybody is coming through this line, so it means the authentication is done already. If you check, this is the authentication. It means the user ID password is match. Then create a fresh session. So if this line create a fresh session, so the entry would be created on a Tomcat, and the same entry is on a client machine. Right? But if somebody is not going to this login servlet and it is directly jumping to this page, so it means the session IDs would not be created. So it will check, and if it is not found, so it will redirect to the login page.
There is no command here, check session active or not.
Check session active or not means?
And syntax like check session. There is no.
There is another way that is called, there is another way that is, if instead of using this true, because this is actually the best practice. When you are using a true, so it means you are forcing create a new session, and when you are using a false, you are forcing do not create a new one, use existing one. So there is another way that is you can use without using this true sign, and now you will type if session is new. So it means you are saying if it create a new session here, then do this thing. And on another page, instead of specifying the false, you will check request.getSession, and then you will check if session dot is new not. Yes, so it means it is not new. So it means it's an existing one. So this would be a longer code. So that's why the shorter code would be instead of, so I'm undo this thing, and instead of this I specify this true mechanism, and there I put a false mechanism. So this false statement request.getSession false is on your every servlet after your login servlet, right?
Is new was the method.
Which one is new is the method. Right now it's time to check this thing. So I'll copy this thing and now paste this thing. So the first way is either I logged in. If I am not logged in and I am directly jumping to this resource that is welcome user. So if you see, when I type welcome user, it will redirect me to the login page. So it means whenever I type this welcome user, this is my servlet name, and when I type and press enter, it will redirect me to the login page, right? So it means it is checking the session is not there, right? Now where the session ID is maintained, so if I go here and go to the settings, so I am using a Chrome browser, so in Chrome browser type cookies here in a search bar, and here is a content setting button. So if I click it here it maintain all cookie and site data, and here you need to type localhost because my machine name is localhost. So if you see, there is a localhost maintained, and if you see, there is several cookies are maintained in my machine, but which cookie is missing? It is a session ID cookie is missing. So the cookie name would be the J session, and it is not maintained in my machine, right? So it means the cookie is right now not maintained, it means session is not maintained. That's why when I'm typing welcome user, it is redirecting me to the login page. But if I'll just close this thing. If I do login here, so it is saying welcome user. So if I copy this thing and paste it here, so it will say welcome. So it means now it is working fine. Because if I am copy paste this in my browser, because in my browser the cookie is maintained. But if I am on a different browser, the cookie is not maintained. If I am on a different machine, the cookie is not maintained, right? So the cookies get maintained, and I can check where this cookies get maintained. So again I go to this settings, and again I type cookie, then I go content settings, all cookie and site data, and I again type localhost, and if you see this new cookie is a get appeared, that is J session ID, and if you see it is saying this J session ID is for my web application. So my application name is my application, so it is maintained for my web application, and it is saying it is created Friday September 11 2015 498.
That is the value section.
Yeah, and this is the number. So the modern browsers support more than the 16 digit, right? Standard one is the 16 digit, but the modern browsers, modern servers is because the number of users are get increased on internet, so it means the value for session ID is get increased, right? So that's why this new support is get added for longer session numbers, right? And when this would be expire, when the browser session is end. So this time I'm saying when you cross this browser, so when you close this browser and it is that the process of your browser is get ended from your machine, then this session is get expired. So it means this session will be get removed from your client machine, and if it is get removed from your client machine, so it means your server would not recognize you, because whenever you make a new request, the request would not have a session number, and if it does not have a session number, so it would not recognize you from a server side, right? So this time we have this session number, that's why it is working. So if I remove it, so I just do and remove this thing, so now this J session ID is get removed, and if it is removed and if I refresh this page, so new request is make, and then it is handed over to the server, and then server check is we have the session, so it is saying no, we do not have, so it means redirect to the login page. So if I refresh this thing, here is it. Is it clear? Now this is from a client side, it means the session is removed from a client side. There is another mechanism that is called server side removal. So for removing from a server side, there is a file we need to maintain, that is web.xml, right? So the one file I need to maintain in my machine, that is web.xml. So either I create this web.xml, or either I can get this web.xml from Tomcat, right? So I type this, so I have a folder called softwares, so, and in this softwares folders Tomcat, and in Tomcat if you go to the web apps, in the examples, in the web.inf we have this sample web.xml. So I just need to copy this web.xml and paste it in web.inf, and now I need to open this file, and here I will remove these comments which is unwanted. This is I removed it, web app is required, and rest of all the information till end I need to remove it. So I will remove this thing. So now I have a web app tag, and inside a web app tag I can use session config tag, and in session config tag we have a session timeout tag, and here I maintain 30. So it means I am saying if the client is not making a new request from last 30 minutes. So take an example, if you go to some banking website and from last 5 to 10 minutes if you are not doing any activity on banking website, the session is get expired. So the same thing we are achieving. So it means if I am saying from last 30 minutes, if the client is not doing any activity on a server, so it means if the client is not making any new request from last 30 minutes, so expire the session ID from a server. So the session ID number will be get deleted from server, but on the client side it is maintained. So again, if you make a new request, so that your session ID goes to the server, but server does not have the session ID, and it is saying first logged in, and then I can communicate to you, right? So this would be always a number.
And this number will always be
In minutes.
equal to minutes.
It is always in minutes, right? So this number depends on how much security you want. So in banking it would be 5 to 10 minutes, but usually on some other website it could be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours, depends on your application to application, right?
I think this viewer is not specified. So by default,
I think by default it's 30 minutes.
30.
It's 30.